Hello, everyone. My name is Bryn Boice, Associate Artistic Director of Commonwealth Shakespeare Company. Thank you for joining us today for our third installment of Tempest Talks, a new series that takes a look inside our upcoming production of The Tempest. Today, we're talking about the elements of design, in particular, the critical elements of scenic and costume design. I'll be chatting with costume designer Nancy Leary and scenic co-designers Jeffrey Petersen and Clint Ramos. Should you need it, speech recognition captioning is being used for this talk. Just locate the CC option in the menu at the bottom of your Zoom window, click it, and select the Show Subtitles option to see the captions. If you're viewing this on a rebroadcast, hello to you too. And you should be seeing our open captioning now at the bottom of the screen. For our patrons using audio describe services, and for those of you listening along, I have blondish chin-length hair and I'm wearing round glasses and a black sweater. I'll have our guests self-describe when they enter the webinar. Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the Indigenous land on which we reside as an expression of appreciation, awareness, and gratitude. I am currently in Medford, Massachusetts, and Jeffrey Petersen and Nancy Leary are in Boston on colonized land in the traditional tribal territory of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts peoples. Clint Ramos is zooming in from the unceded lands of the Mohegan people, colonially known as Mount Washington, Massachusetts. We would like to also acknowledge that the digital technology we're using together today is not available in many Indigenous communities. To learn more about CSC's work towards racial equity, including this process of land acknowledgement, please visit comshakes.org. Today's program is free, but we hope that you will consider a donation of $10 or any amount that is meaningful to you. To donate, visit comshakes.org/donate. In these uncertain times, your support of the arts is more important than ever. CSC is best known for its annual free Shakespeare on Boston Common. We are putting together an outstanding production of The Tempest to share with you this year, directed by Steve Mailer, featuring John Douglas Thompson as Prospero. Our esteemed guests tonight are a few of our incredible design team members. Let's introduce them now. Costume designer Nancy Leary, come on in. Unmute.
It's because I goofed earlier. Sorry. Hi.
No
I'm
worries.
Nancy Leary. I'm the costume designer for The Tempest. And I mean, I have purple hair. I'm wearing black glasses and jeans. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. And scenic co-designer, first, Jeffrey Petersen. Jeffrey?
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Petersen. I use he, him pronouns, and I've got sort of shortish brown hair, and I'm also wearing denim today, a little denim number.
Denim duo. And Clint Ramos. Clint, come on in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Clint Ramos. I go by he and his pronouns. And for access, I'm a Filipino man with brown skin. I have gold-rimmed glasses. I have chin-length black hair, and I am wearing a black shirt with a gold necklace.
Thank you so much. I have to start by gushing a little about the collaborative process with this particular group. On a personal note, Nancy Leary costume designed a wonderful project with me for CSC, Universe Rushing Apart to Carol Churchill 1X that we did in 2019. And Jeffrey Petersen scenic designed my master's thesis in directing, a little light Henrik Ibsen, lo these many years ago. And Clint has collaborated with Steve Mailer, our fearless leader at CSC, numerous times over the years. In fact, this production of The Tempest is not any of your first rodeos with CSC. Can you tell us what other Shakespeare on the Common productions or work with CSC that you've been involved with over the years? Nancy, you want to go first?
oh gosh. I've done about 3 productions on the Common. Love's Labor's Lost, Twelfth Night, and Two Gents. But I've done other productions with Steve as well outside. In CSC, our American Hamlet, which is that new piece by Jake Broder. And we worked on together on the last play of a trilogy written by Bruce Dean, which was called The Last Will. So Steve and I worked together a bit.
Nice. Jeffrey, how about you? I know you've worked with us a lot.
Yes, well, I was introduced to CSC through Clint, actually. So Clint, I was his assistant on Death and the Maiden, and then also Birdie, which was a few years ago. And then I designed also R&J, which was with CSC2. Adam directed that one. And then just most recently, the Christmas Carol, which was in Downtown Crossing this past winter.
Yes. Nancy, do you work on that one too?
Yes, I did.
I thought so too. And Clint, Clint, tell us all
I
about-
don't. I actually don't. I don't know how many shows I've done with CSC. I know CSC was one of my first jobs after grad school, so that's a long time ago. I think maybe like we're, I don't know, 12 shows, maybe, I don't know. It started with Romeo and Juliet, As You Like It, Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, The Scottish Play, Hamlet, Julius Caesar, Oi, a lot.
It feels like it feels like if any, yeah,
I
exactly.
know, a long time, Nancy.
It feels like if you've seen a CSC show, you've probably seen or anything, you've probably seen one of these people's work. That's sort of what I wanted to get at, because it is these are people that are tried and true collaborators with CSC and Steve. So some seasoned CSC folk, that's all I'm trying to say. I want to talk today with you all about the nature of collaboration between designers and directors. When I did the earlier Tempest talk with Steve Mailer, we talked about his initial image board that he collects, like that's how he begins his work. He collects images and then he eventually sort of releases these sort of, you know, like brain babies out into the designer's hands to then muse on and run with. So what I want to ask is, what is your creative and collaborative process like from project impetus, like being hired, to seeing that director's vision and then to say your final drawings or models? Clint, do you want to begin?
I think it varies, you know. I think our processes kind of also change with us as human beings, you know, over time. But it's always, I think it's based on, you know, it has to be based on trust, right? It has to be based on this idea that whatever you think about or whatever you talk about, that both of you, you know, with at least with the director at first, you know, you both share those values, and you share the sort of the primary goal, right, of like what you're trying to say. And then I also feel like that extends to the larger kind of like design community when you create the play. But I think it's really, to me, it has to start with that idea of trust. And then, you know, for me, that means that, you know, that we are allowed to ebb and flow in terms of like, when we want to get back together, you know, but knowing that also, you know, that we have we have access to each other, you know. And so, you know, when I work with Steve, for instance, I think, you know, I look for enough information, like a germ of ideas, you know, to sort of like begin my own process. And then if you know, Steve usually sends a lot of stuff that that he encounters along the way, and so you kind of like think about what those mean in terms of that original conversation that you had, you know, and those could morph or whatever. But I think it's really it's almost like it's a relationship, you know. It's really based on that kind of trust that, you know, you will take care of each other's vision. You know?
That's great. Nancy, Jeffrey, anyone want to jump in and talk about the process? There's something interesting. The reason I'm not sure who I want to talk to first is that there's an interesting collaboration that is happening between Jeffrey and Clint on a couple of productions so far. But then also, because Clint, you also are a costume designer in many shows, but not particularly this one. How does that collaboration happen with a costume designer that's not you? I'm fascinated.
I'm hands off.
Like that. So, that's great.
No. I actually love Nancy's work. I mean, it's with Jeffrey, when we started working together, I think you were still in grad school, right, Jeffrey?
I was, yeah, yeah.
And I knew how talented he was, and I felt like, I think more and more, I feel like, when we engage with younger artists, um, there isn't a reason why they can't be like doing it with you. You know what I mean? And so I think, with Jeffrey, over time, it felt like a lot of what he's contributing to the process, was important, and was also very, it was marked in the work, and so I think for me, co-designing something with Jeffrey just kind of like happened naturally, because it made sense, right? And with your question about costumes, like, it always, um it's always easier when you like respect the person's work.
Yeah, of
You know what I
course.
mean? Because like that it makes it easier. Like, I understand what Nancy's doing, and it makes complete sense, and I love it. So I don't there are times, when I it's hard for me to imagine things without thinking about the other, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that's the same for everybody, but what I love is when, another designer brings in, a thought process that you've never, encountered, or you've never considered, and it breaks your mind open in a way that's really wonderful, and yeah.
Awesome. Nancy, how
Well,
about you? Yeah, Jeffrey.
well, what I was going to say is that with Clint, there's never really any ego involved, and there's just this incredible generosity with all of the designers, not just with me in the scenic realm, but I've seen him sort of, really sort of reach out and include everybody, and those are the collaborators that you really like and cherish. Those experiences. They're great. And the other thing too that Clint mentioned while I was in grad school, like, I mean, the fact that that he sort of like just kind of invited me along on this journey to share in that journey, it's really been amazing. It's been amazing to sort of learn from someone who's had quite a few more years in this game than I have, and also someone who's like so so easygoing in lots of different environments. I think that's been instructive for me. Just sort of at the end of the day, recognizing that we're here to work, but we're also here to, respect one another and have a good time. And it's not just me. I mean, I've seen Clint sort of reach out to, I think that's one of the hallmarks, right? Is he's sort of all about bringing in the next generation of designers.
That's true.
Yeah, I know that's a huge part of your work, Clint, is fostering younger designers, and we need so much more of that. That sort of apprenticing and bringing people on board. It's really great. Nancy, I want to hear your process, because you're working with bodies in a different way than scenic designers work with bodies.
Yes.
Tell me about your process and how you get started.
Well, it all depends, really. Every project is a little different. And I will say that what Clint said is really important. There's a respect that is just inherent in the team, when you get together. Uh-oh, my dogs are... Anyway, I knew it.
Bring them on.
But on this one, the design is wonderful. It's like a freestanding art installation. So for me, it gives me all the opportunities to explore all kinds of different things, different periods, different, locations, whatever. It can be different in different pieces, depending on whether you're doing an opera or a play or the type of director that you're working with. But it's always been I love working with Steve, because he gives you this opportunity, like air to breathe, and think and explore and to come back with ideas. And he's always open to that. So it's great.
That's awesome. I want to now, oh, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was going to say too, yeah, with Steve, he's always open to new ideas. And sometimes the thing that's exciting, is he'll bring an idea, this will spur another idea. And so you'll come back with more research, and then he'll come back with more research. And it's like the curiosity and the sort of like the exploration sort of never stops, which is kind of rewarding, especially on a project like this, which is kind of stretched for years now.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been fun.
I'd like to sort of touch on also, because this is sort of such a great love fest. I want to talk about the pain points. The pain points. I love that word. Collaboration is key, but we have to think. We always think when we're making this art form, and as we consider this art form and business that it is more equitable, I'm interested to see how your creativity blossoms or takes a hit, or both, when you think about the budget, especially in this moment. I'm wondering what it's like to vision or revision. I mean, like Jeffrey just said, great segue. We've been working on this project for a long time. But what is it like to vision and revision a given idea, or rescale it? And not just this project, but other projects. And I just love to have you talk about budget, because I'm not sure our audience has ever maybe unpacked what it's like to work in the arts where there isn't a ton of money. I love to hear you talk about that. Anyone?
I mean, I think sometimes when you have less money, you're more creative, I mean, what do you really need? I mean, for instance, doing a Shakespeare, you could have a group of actors on the common in their own clothes. I mean, it speaks for itself. It doesn't necessarily, they don't need anything really, if you think about it. But I find that sometimes I can be a lot more creative when the budgets are smaller. Yes, it's nice to have big budgets because we know more things can get made, whatever. But the evolution isn't always a bad thing. Like saying that you don't have X amount of dollars now is not necessarily a negative thing for me. It's just a challenge.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, building sets, building costumes. There are a lot of artisans that are at work that that don't have the opportunity to be on these webinars and talk about how wonderful and creative they are, but they're just as deserving of all of the praise. There's so many people that are working behind the scenes, the painters and the people who are putting the costumes together, and all those people are deserving of living wage. And, so sometimes scale can affect the budget, particularly cast sizes. And, the set that Clint and I have conceived is complex, in a number of ways. It's going to take some considerably talent, like a lot of talent, to sort of put it together. It's not a set that is built from like off the shelf materials, right? So it's going to require some ingenuity and artistry, and so that's trying to realize that might be a stretch, and if it turns out that it can't happen, life goes on and we come up with a new idea.
Yeah, the thing that I'm hearing is that it really causes your brain to have to like open up to new ideas on the fly, I imagine. A lot of times, like,
yes. Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. I think that it's important for our audience to know that we work within tight constraints in the arts, and sometimes we're really happy about that. But it's also kind of it's tough. We want to pay people living wages, and we want people to get we want people to be wowed and excited enough and inspired to come back to the theater and go to see other theater. And we use all of our powers of ingenuity that we have to create beautiful things and inspire that. On that note, I would like to ask, how did you know that you were going to be a theatrical designer? What led you to this, or what was your breakthrough moment? Clint, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I didn't really have, I don't know what I think the breakthrough, moment for me was, I didn't set out to be a theater designer. I had imagined myself to be a director, I suppose, in college. But I think that the breakthrough moment for me, if there was one, was I just got really exhausted. Like I found myself completely emotionally exhausted after talking to actors, after a rehearsal. And I felt like, you know what, I don't, that this is like, I love actors. Okay. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't have the facility to be able to hold all of that and all the other things that are actually going. So I think one of the things that made me gravitate towards design, and particularly as a career path, was the ability to be able to go inward, and both physically, and emotionally, I suppose, because we could go back to our studios and get lost in the tiny things and go outward again. And so it's always, for me, there's a healthy balance between public and private, that I really enjoy, with sort of the benefits of being able to formulate and control, a particular world, and still have a sort of a big picture thinking applied to the process. So that to me was maybe sort of the moment where I said, yeah, I'm gonna focus on this particular thing.
Nancy, how about you?
I don't have an aha moment. I started out, I have a degree in humanities. I've always been interested in sociology, anthropology, biosocial anthropology, and that kind of stuff. And after that, I just decided that I would go into a theater program. And I realized very quickly that that's where I could really use all the stuff that I had learned in a different way, in a way of storytelling. And I've been in it ever since. So I've done it. I've been in the theater my whole life. I've worked.
Did you sew first, draw first? How did you get into clothing? Period,
by different ways. I mean, I had, yeah. I did all kinds of stuff. I had a technical background, and then the drawing came after, but we did some art and stuff like that. But I didn't really quite know exactly what I would do in theater, so I explored a few different things, and it just sort of settled on design. It just sort of came my way. It just, happened, and then I went with it. So, and I love it. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Jeffrey?
Well, I was thinking about this because, you gave us the little prompts to think about. And I was thinking about when I was a young boy, I grew up in a little trailer house in a very rural part of the country. And my dad sort of dug out a basement under the trailer house for us. And we had this like sort of makeshift basement. And my sister and I decided we were going to, it was kind of scary. So, like it was not well adorned. So we thought we'd create a haunted house. And I remember making little horror scenes, sort of like the kind of thing that you would walk through. And we charged like 25 cents for the neighbor kids to come by. So I suppose that was probably the beginning of it. And then I came to college really late. Like it took me a long time to get to college and to sort of figure out that there was, something that you could do. And I think that, it wasn't really until grad school that I sort of put the pieces together. And it's sort of been, design has kind of been a part of me. Like I've had so many different jobs over the years, and all of them, most of them were miserable. But it wasn't until I started working in theater that I kind of like started, appreciating life and finding my place in it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for telling me that story. I'd like to now take a moment so people can see brains on display, I guess, and look at look at your original inspirations for the Tempest and where we're headed. So I'm going to just share my screen real quick and bring up a little PowerPoint. Now, I did, for those people who would like to see more inspiration, definitely watch the Steve Mailer Tempest talk. It's on our YouTube channel, but which sort of led to these initial design element images that then the scenic design is born of. So this is a Richard Serra sculpture that I believe after Steve sent all of his images and, like I said, released them out to the design team, this is, I believe, something. Did Clint, did you find this? Jeffrey, did you find this?
Yeah, I think this came from me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to the why that you chose this as an inspiration image?
Yeah, I had to go back to this process. I think part of what Steve had originally sent was this idea of like how to physicalize the shipwreck, really, and also, I think part of what we've been thinking about is how a structure could actually make an impact, in the sort of vastness of common, right? And I think I was drawn to this idea of like, if it is indeed a ship, or it is indeed the remains of a ship, then how can it be, how can it be physicalized? And that Richard Serra sculpture was really important because it showed how, it could be many things, you know what I mean? And it could be, and in a very sort of like simple shape, that it could exist in a space in a very sort of impactful yet simple way, and that's sort of that was the sort of spiritual inspiration for the scenery,
It's very cool. I'm just going to show one more sort of angle on that, and then some of the inspiration photos. If I can move us out of the way a little bit, but the some of these I think Jeffrey added as well to the image board that we shared on Tempest Talk 1 with Steve, but like found object-y kind of feeling, ship hull shape, and that has led to, and I'll just sort of show the initial day, Clint, that I think this happened.
Yeah, Jeffrey, you want to tell this story?
Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I do remember this day. So we were at Clint's studio in New York, which is always kind of a hive of activity, and there's usually
he drove down
1,000 people there, and there's always a million shows happening, and it was really kind of about scissors and finding shapes and creating. Trying to sort of like capture the spirit of those Serra sculptures in a way, that was also sort of telling a story. And, I think Clint mentioned this earlier too, but we were really kind of interested in this idea of creating something on the common that was kind of sculptural and like wave-like, so these wave forms, and something that could sort of exist there all day long, even when the play wasn't happening, and be kind of captivating, to sort of the passersby in the park. There are a lot of folks that, walk by the site every day, and we wanted it to sort of beckon to them, right? So that's what this.
Yeah, this was literally, we took the footprint of what the allowable space was, right? And we cut a piece of foam core, and then we started just like putting shapes in. And I think, like that little platform there was, part of that ship, and just like thinking of how we could deconstruct the sort of the hull of the ship and make these shapes, the Richard Serra like shapes. It's just a fun day.
Very cool. I'm just going to show the drawing and the model.
Yeah.
And things are still in flux, obviously, because things are in flux, but this is the current state of being here, and it's super cool how that evolved from those images that we saw that Steve released into the world and was grabbed by the designers, and how that collaboration happened. Super cool. And I want to go to Nancy, some costume inspirations. She sent me these really cool images as well of, we need to talk about these just for a second.
Yeah, well, I looked for natural sort of. I had the natural environment. Where is this island? What time period? Whatever. But I mean, they're there for 12 years, right? More than a decade on this island. And I was thinking about the existing creatures on the island and to give them age and to help. And barnacles. I grew up on the coast of Nova Scotia, so all this is pretty, stuff that I'm.
Nice. Old hat, right? Old barnacles.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, and I also thought about what would wash up, what time period, what would wash up on shore, and what would they use that maybe, they'd pick up on the shoreline. Nets, of course, come to mind, various fishing nets and things like that. And I was drawn to that. But also greenery. I mean, they're, as you can see, shells, using shells for sort of status, and whatever greenery might be on the island as part of the costume. So very natural elements. And and this was a handmade thing on the left, but it emulates a net of some sort. Mm-hmm. And then also the wearing down of wearing something for a long period of time, age. But I'm really intrigued by sort of where they came from, a populated place, more of an urban place, and where they're living. So that kind of putting the two ideas together, and that I'm fascinated with that.
It's super cool.
And Steve sent me a bunch of things too, very natural, sort of masks, bones, and things like that, and that was very inspiring. So
thank you so much for allowing me to share that. I just want to thank you so much. We're winding down here, but I want to just say one more thing. I know that there's still a question on many people's minds that I nor the designers have any control over, and that is how we're dealing with the pandemic in this production. Commonwealth Shakespeare Company is watching very closely as the new guidance around COVID-19 protocol evolves, and we're working carefully with our city and state partners to navigate this coming summer. We, barring any new and unforeseen setbacks, are very optimistic that we'll reunite with our audiences, artists, and artisans with safety at the forefront. So stay tuned on that for more info as it comes, and it will come shortly. I just want to thank all of you so much, Nancy Leary, Clint Ramos, Jeffrey Petersen. It was fantastic having you on Tempest Talk. I could talk to you guys all night, and I hope someday that we're in the same room and we get to do so. But thank you for coming on and talking about the elements of design. As we wrap up, folks, please don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms to stay informed about our other upcoming events and this upcoming event. Our handle is @ComShakes. We'll also be posting this recording of Tempest Talks to social media tomorrow afternoon for others who might have missed it. Many thanks, you all.
Thank you.
Wonderful talking to you. Can't wait to see you out there. Thank you. Thank you to all who've joined us. Thank you, Nancy, Jeffrey, and Clint, for giving us a bit of your time. Bye, all.
Bye.